What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hines Show. On today's episode, I have special guest Blake Jew joining me. Thanks so much for joining the show, Blake.
Thank you for having me. I've been a good couple last weeks of football.
I mean, there's so much to look forward to. There's some great playoff games this week. There's some really good playoff games this past week, and also the national championship game this past Monday. So we'll go ahead and talk about the national championship game from this past Monday. What are your thoughts on that game?
Devonta Smith's another animal. What a game by the Heisman winner, especially in the first half. You know, he got hurt the second half. I believe it was a finger injury, possible break in the index finger, but set a record for most receptions in a college football championship in just the first half. I mean, it's crazy how well he played. Mac Jones did a terrific job getting the ball to him. I thought it was a very well-coached game by Nick Saban to put Devonta Smith in the backfield, have him go around in the backfield and make shifts and moves and let Smith just get open. I think that was a terrific idea on the part of Saban. Shaun Wade just couldn't keep up with them. A lot of people have given Shaun Wade a bad rap now. He's still a fantastic cornerback. He just cannot keep up with a really good wide receiver like Smith. And just overall dominant performance by Alabama. Justin Fields, he carried his own occasionally. He was able to get into the end zone a couple of times, but at the end of the day, if your defense is giving up 50-plus points, you're not going to win the game. So just a dominant performance overall by Alabama. I thought, both Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devonta Smith, the defense, really everything played well and did what they were supposed to do in that game and pulled out the win.
Yeah, I can't believe Devonta Smith. I mean, going into the Oklahoma game and the semifinals, Oklahoma could not stress enough. We have to stop Devonta Smith. He had like 2 or 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. And you would think Ohio State would do much better against them because Ohio State, I know their defense has been inconsistent, but they have a much better defense than Oklahoma in years past. And it's real surprising how, Devonta Smith played, I believe it was 215 yards and 3 touchdowns first half. He only played that 1 or 2 snaps in the second half. Like you mentioned, he got injured. But I cannot believe how well he played. Najee Harris played great. He had a couple of touchdowns. Matt Jones played very, very well. And he was pretty much injured the entire fourth quarter. 52-24 is very, very impressed with Alabama. I did think it was going to be closer. Going into the season, I thought there was only 2 teams that could contend with Alabama. It was Ohio State and Florida. And the reason I really thought Ohio State's defense would step up and their offense would step up more. I know Ohio State doesn't have a great defense, but I'm still kind of surprised they gave up over 50 points and just scored 24. Look at best offenses around the country. Florida, Alabama, Ohio State's up there. They're not consistent, but I still definitely think they'd score more than 24. I believe the over-under was 80. Going into the game, I thought it was definitely going to go over. I was very surprised it went under. But it was a great game by the Crimson Tide. And a very underwhelming performance by Justin Fields. Do you think this could affect his draft stock any?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you think this performance against Alabama could affect Justin Fields' draft stock?
Yeah, I don't really think it's going to. Could it? Yes, I guess. This is full-on NFL talent he's going against across the board. Every single position. You're seeing guys like Patrick Surtain, Dylan Moses. All-pro Christian Barmore, especially in the interior of the line. A bunch of, NFL pro-ready guys playing in the game. So, he's going to be doing this even more when it comes to the NFL. But, at the same time, I think all things considered, he played all right. The offensive line didn't do him justice, a lot of times, guys like Christian Barmore, especially on the inside, were getting so much pressure so often. Fields was forced to escape the pocket and try to make plays on his own. And, he can play superhero as much as he wants, but against a team like Alabama, it's almost impossible. So I'm not going to blame him too much for the loss. I think at the end of the day, he's still my quarterback, too, on my big board right now. I still think he's slightly above Zach Wilson, but I think there definitely is a conversation on who is the better prospect. I really think the Clemson game, for the most part, helped him out a lot more. And I think, despite him having an all right, it was a mediocre game, I'll call it, against Alabama. I don't think it's going to affect his draft stock as much because I think that most quarterbacks in the league have been having these issues. I think Trevor Lawrence would have as well. And, we saw Trevor Lawrence struggle against Ohio State, which I think is more eye-opening than seeing Justin Fields struggle against Alabama.
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence. I thought, I don't think Fields played great, but Fields still played much better than Lawrence did. And I know some people maybe even said that Fields could jump, but I like Fields some, but regardless, unless he had like a monster game, he was still going to be my quarterback 3. He didn't change. I have Zach Wilson number 2. Very impressed with Wilson, but I mean, I'm interested to see where Fields will go. I'll be really surprised if he doesn't. I'll be absolutely shocked if Fields is out of the top 4. I don't see him going in the top 4. The Jets or the Falcons at number 4, or a team with trade number 4. I just really don't see Fields, Zach Wilson, or Trevor Lawrence going out of the top 4. I think all 3 of those quarterbacks would be 3 out of the first 4 picks.
It would make a lot of sense, especially assuming some trades occur. And we know that, possibly some buyers like the Houston Texans might be shopping for our top picks. That could change a lot of things depending on what happens in the Trevor Lawrence and possible Deshaun Watson trade. But yeah, I agree. I think, in my eyes, I see Wilson as being one of the more polished quarterbacks coming straight out. Might have to take a year to sit back, but at the same time, he can come straight in and be dominant immediately with his elite accuracy and just overall great play. I think that, there is reasons to believe that he could not do great under a poor system because he's had a not very good strength of schedule. His hardest game this year was against Coastal Carolina, who pressured him a lot, and we saw the issues he had there handling the pressure. So there is reason to believe that he might not be the safest pick of quarterback. But at the same time, I personally believe that if you put him in a good enough team that can have the pieces around him, similar to how the Miami Dolphins did around Tua this year, you can still find success even with him, not having the best performances day in and day out. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's a very big possibility, the first 3 picks or first 4 picks, that 3 of them could go quarterback. I think at least for sure 2 of them will. I feel like the Falcons at this point are a team that I expect to go quarterback, and it's still a very strong possibility either the Jets make a move down or take a quarterback themselves and let Sam Darnold go, depending on what's going to happen in the trades. So I think that there's a good chance, and especially for guys like the Bengals or in pick 5 and some other teams, it's going to be a huge help to them because a lot of the guys that they're going to like are going to be able to fall since Cincinnati's not a very big quarterback needy team. They'll be able to have guys like Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase who fall later in the draft. Teams like the Eagles as well, maybe even the Cowboys, who also have quarterbacks that they still have quarterback situations, but likely to take other prospects. They're also going to have guys like that fall on. So maybe Devonta Smith falls to pick 6 or pick 7 for some of these teams. It's going to be a huge, huge gain.
Towards the end of the episode, but in my opinion, the top 6 in no particular order, I just think the top 6 is going to be Lawrence, Fields, Zach Wilson, Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, and Devonta Smith. No particular order. As of right now, I don't see there's any way how that's not the top 6 unless like maybe somebody reaches for somebody. But so I'll go ahead and show the fan question here. Most of the followers of this podcast are Bengals fans. And hypothetical question: if Devonta Smith and Penei Sewell are available at number 5, who do you personally believe the Bengals should take?
As much as I like Devonta Smith, I'm not going to get too overhyped with him. There are still a few issues that I have with Smith, and we kind of saw that a little bit after the injury he had in the college football championship game. He's a very, very small frame, and there's a very, very good chance he can be injury prone when it comes to the NFL. As many people have, made memes and joked about it. I mean, he is a very, very small guy. He's 170 pounds, and I weigh more than him. So, very tiny, can, a bad hit in the NFL can completely derail his entire career. He is super fast, great, of course, great at catching the ball, great at getting open in space, has terrific speed. Everything that you like in a wide receiver. He's just not physical. He's not going to be the physical guy to get up and get the passes. He can't take the hits like a guy like AJ Green could. It's going to be a huge issue at the next level. He can easily play a good a wide receiver Z position and kind of be that Deshaun Jackson type guy for your team. I think that would be his best bet. But playing as an X in this league against guys like Richard Sherman, who are big physical corners that can really put a hit on you, that's going to be an issue for him. So I personally, right now, I think, especially in the Bengals position, having such a huge need of offensive line, Penei still makes a lot more sense because, Cincinnati just lost Joe Burrow for the entire season in the middle of last year due to the poor play of the offensive line. We do know that they have two guys that they like in Jonah Williams and Trey Hopkins, who can be future O-lineman members. But at the same time, getting that next offensive lineman, that next best offensive lineman, if you ask me, is key to having a successful offense, because you don't just need two good guys. You need three or four really good guys and a guy that can, possibly bring in there as an average one, just to have a solid O-line at the next level. I think if Cincinnati wants to ever be playoff contenders, you kind of need to get a guy like Penei Sewell to possibly play your next tackle position next to Jonah Williams, and maybe even sign a guy like Joe Tooney in free agency, just to really kind of lock up that offensive line for the future. And I think, the Bengals, this has been their demons for the last several years, ever since losing Whitworth and Zeitler to free agency. So get it solved this year, sign a guy like Joe Tooney, draft a guy like Penei Sewell, and you're good.
Yeah, I think the way Devontae Smith played the last couple of games, I think it is debatable, but I think you still have to take Penei Sewell because, you have Sewell left tackle, you move Jonah Williams to right tackle. That's two, very, very good tackles you have for the next decade protecting your franchise quarterback and Burrow. Those guys are both on rookie deals. And like you said, Burrow's coming off an injury with a bad offensive line. And so you have Jonah Williams at right tackle, obviously more likely Trey Hopkins at center. You sign Joe Tooney or Brandon Sheriff from Washington, and you get Penei Sewell. You go from a sucky offensive line to, once you get Penei Sewell to and if you add Joe Tooney, that's not elite, but that's certainly top 12, top 15 range easily. You have to protect your franchise quarterback, and Burrow is going to get hurt. He already got hurt once. Devontae Smith, I'm a big fan of him. Personally, before the college football playoff started, I was a fan of Kyle Pitts at number 5, or trade back if Sewell's gone and get Pitts 8 or 9, something like that. But the way Devontae Smith's played the last couple of games, I wouldn't be upset if we were to draft him at number 5, unless Penei Sewell's available. If Sewell was available at number 5, I would personally take him. But if he's gone at 5, I have no issues taking Devontae Smith. The thing with taking Sewell against Devontae Smith, the wide receiver class is so good. So if you take Devontae Smith number 5, obviously you're not going to take another receiver in the second round. If you take Sewell in number 5, if he's available, you still have the opportunity to possibly get Kadarius Toney, Moore from Purdue, or possibly even Chris Olave from Ohio State. All three of those guys are very good wide receivers. And if you pair one of those three receivers with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, it's a really nice young trio. Tyler Boyd is on a good, decent contract. We did not overpay him at all. T. Higgins is on a rookie deal. Obviously, that rookie receiver being on a rookie deal as well. And with Sewell, I just think it's a more pressing need. I know in the draft you draft best player available, but there's times you kind of have to go in between best player available and your team need. But personally, I would take Sewell at number 5. But if Devontae Smith is available and Sewell is already drafted, I have no issues taking Devontae Smith.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you said. And I also think you brought up a really good point talking about the round 2 receivers. We saw this last year. The top 3 guys were considered to be Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and Henry Ruggs. But, you look at the best receivers in the class that year: Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool. Those are second-round guys. Justin Jefferson was a first-round guy, but they were the second-tier receivers afterwards. And so this year, you get guys like Chris Olave, Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore, as you mentioned, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kadarius Toney, a lot of guys in the second wave that can be very, very effective again this year. And, I would gladly take another T. Higgins on my team if I could get him in the second round. So I'm not going to complain with that. So I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of value in going wide receiver round 2, maybe, instead of going wide receiver round 1 and taking offensive line round 2. It just, I get why it makes a lot of sense. And if Penei Sewell's not there, then I think it makes a lot more sense, of course. But if Sewell is there, getting the second best prospect in the draft at pick 5 and then getting a top tier wide receiver round 2, it just makes a lot more sense to me.
Sewell at 5 is available. The wide receivers I mentioned, the wide receivers you mentioned, is there any wide receiver you prefer at our second round pick?
There's a lot of guys I like at round 2. I think number 1 on my board right now that I would consider at pick 37 would be Chris Olave, the wide receiver from Ohio State. I think the Bengals are in need of a guy with long speed and get down that field very quickly and make some deep catches. And I think Olave really fits that kind of term. He is similar to Smith in the aspect that he doesn't have the biggest frame, but and he's not the tallest guy either, but he can get down the field very, very quickly and be a deep threat for this team at the next level. Again, another guy, Terrace Marshall, they're basically the exact same player in my eyes. Terrace Marshall is a little bit bigger and can probably is probably a little bit slower than Olave, and we'll have to see in the combine how that works out. And I think the combine really decide for me who's the better prospect between those two guys. But again, another guy with not the fastest guy, but has good long speed, can get down the field very quickly. Those are the two guys, in my opinion, that are at the top of my board. I can see a guy like Tony as well being a very good option. I think he is not only a very good gadget guy, but he also can go down the field if needed, extremely fast and a very, very dangerous punt returner. But as with the hype I'm seeing from Tony, it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe sneaks into the first round, which might be a bit of an issue. So, I think right now, expecting Olave and Terrace Marshall to be there, and I think it makes a lot of sense between those two guys.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think I couldn't hear you for a while.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. My mic was muted. It's the first time using this. This is the struggle of life.
It cut you off after I was finished speaking about Olave and Terrace Marshall. I just want to let you know that.
Oh my God, is that long ago?
Yeah, I left early and rejoined, and I tried to text you and let you know, but I didn't. It was, but.
Oh, all right, it's all right. So, I prefer Tony. I'll kind of short it. I prefer Tony. He reminds me. He reminds me everything the Bengals wish they had in John Ross. He's a really speedster wide receiver. I mean, he's not the greatest in just catching, but the thing that makes him so explosive is that he has yards after the catch, and that he's so talented. I mean, I really like him. If he's not available, I have no issues taking Chris Olave in the second round. But to me, it's going to be really interesting to see with Kadarius Toney with his 40-yard dash, because you look at KJ Hamler, the Broncos last year, his 40-yard dash really underwhelmed people. I thought he would have been a lot better. He dropped in the middle of the second round. And he actually could have been a first-round pick. It was for a better 40-yard dash. Look at Jalen Rieger. He didn't have a great 40-yard. I think he had a pretty good one. That's why he moved up some, and the Eagles reached him there. But to me, I think Tony could have a possible very, very good 40-yard dash. And I think when it's all said and done, I think hopefully a top 20 pick. I don't think there's any chance the Bengals will get him in round 2. But if he's there around 2, I'm pretty much dead set on taking Tony unless there's absolutely somebody who drops who absolutely shouldn't, like a top 15, top 20 talent. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the NFL draft plays out in April. So for the second time here, if I was not so stupid to have my mind commuted, I'll talk about the NFL playoffs. Get started. We'll talk about the Bills defeating the Colts. What was your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it was a very entertaining game. I thought one of the closer games in the wild card that we saw. I had a genuine belief that the Colts could have won that game had they performed a little bit better inside the red zone. A lot of issues in the red zone, not generating enough points. Going for it on fourth down and not converting, and that killed them. That was really the backbreaker for them. Josh Allen yet again proving why he's one of the most improved players in the NFL this year, and I was very impressed with his performance yet again. Came out, was poised, had a very, very good game, got it to his receivers when needed, and him and Stephon Diggs have been a great connection for the entire year. And the Bills' defense really did enough for them to win. They bent, but they did not break, and that's really what you need in the playoffs. As long as you don't break, you're going to win the game. So Buffalo, took out a good win at the end of the day. Indianapolis was a huge field goal, I believe at 33 yards away, that could have ended up putting the game into overtime. That was earlier on in the game, but if the score had stayed the same with what it would have gone to OT, and that was a huge loss for them. Just the small mental mistakes is really what killed Indianapolis at the end of the day. I thought that game could have gone to OT and maybe been a very, very good game at the end of the day. But, the Bills stayed in there and pulled out the win when needed. So, very impressive game for them. I think they're the hottest team in football right now. And I believe that they could go very, very far if they can possibly beat the best team in the league, that being the Kansas City Chiefs, if they win next week.
Still new.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Trying to think. Up until that game, they won 9 of the last 10 games, and the game they lost was against the Cardinals in that Hail Mary pass. Those plays never happened. So, I'm not going to discredit that loss, but in a way, yes, I am. They really should be 10-0 the last 10 games. They're playing amazing football right now. Josh Allen's playing like a top 3 quarterback, and I'm not surprised this game was close at all. Because the Colts are a very, very good team. Rivers isn't what it used to be. And, they do have a nice offense and have a couple good running backs and good wide receivers. A really, really good defense. I'm not surprised this game was close because, like I mentioned, they have a great team. But to me, this was kind of like the Bills prove-it game. They've not won a playoff game in many years. You got to prove people wrong first. If you want to be a Super Bowl contender, win a playoff game first. And that's what they did. It was a close game. They were able to pull it out, and that's what matters. And to me, I honestly kind of thought if the Colts would have the Colts had a better quarterback, they would have won this game. Rivers is not what he used to be at all. If this was prime Philip Rivers, I fully believe the Colts would have won this game. You could tell he's aging. Everybody talks about, Drew Brees. This is probably Brees' last year playing in the NFL. He's getting older and not playing what he used to be. But you can also make the same case. You should make the same case for Philip Rivers. He's just not had a good season, which kind of leads to the next topic here, the Colts quarterback situation. Rivers is a free agent at the end of the season. He signed a 1-year, $20 million this last offseason. And Jacoby Brissett is a free agent as well, so they do not have currently a starting quarterback on the roster. To me, what I personally believe the Eagles should do, I don't know if it's really popular or not, but I'm dead set for it, should totally happen, is that the Indianapolis Colts should trade for Carson Wentz. Wentz is not going to be on the Eagles team next year, especially with Doug Peterson being fired. We'll talk about that later on in the show. The Eagles, they have Jalen Hurts in his final games that he started. He played pretty well. It's pretty much known that Wentz is not going to be a part of the team if he is not the starter. And Frank Wright, the head coach of the Colts, was the offensive coordinator of the Eagles while Wentz played there on his MVP caliber season. And I really think if Wentz goes to the Eagles, it's a fresh start, has basically a new beginning, restarted his career in a way. I think it will be really, really good with the Colts. And let's say if Wentz will get traded to the Colts, I think they're a Super Bowl contender immediately because, I mean, really, if the Colts had just a slightly better quarterback this year, they would be a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. But to me, I think it would be the best case scenario for the Colts to not re-sign Philip Rivers. I know some people may want them to re-sign him, but to me, I think it's the best case for the Colts if they would trade for Carson Wentz.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you. I think that would be a very good move. I am still a believer that Carson Wentz can revitalize his career somewhere else. Though he's struggled, he's definitely, I think, been the main issue for the Eagles' failures this year. He's lost all his confidence with the team and everything like that. I think you give him a team like the Colts with a great offensive line and give him, just a good offense to work with, a good offensive mind team. And the Colts could turn things around with Carson Wentz, and then it could be good. But at the same time, I'm not leaving out the idea of possibly, maybe Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan hit free agency, and maybe the Colts try to attack them there, or maybe even in the draft. Though I don't think they'll end up drafting any of the top 4 quarterbacks. I think there is a very strong possibility maybe Mac Jones or Kyle Trask could fall around 2 or 3, and maybe at that point you could probably draft a guy and sign maybe a Ryan Fitzpatrick to kind of be the mentor over him like they did Miami this year to Tagovailoa. I think that would also make a lot of sense. I think probably for the Colts' best success, though, you probably want to get a quarterback similar to Carson Wentz who can win if he's got a good team around him. And I think the Colts definitely have a good offensive line around him. And if they can get some extra weapons to put around Carson Wentz, they can really have a good offense for the future.
Yeah, I've seen some people say that the Colts should trade for Deshaun Watson. That's not happening. I mean, rival teams, division teams don't do trades like that. And why would the Texans do that? I mean, it just does not make any sense. You're making this Colts a real threat to win the Super Bowl. You're making your team 100 times worse. And since the Colts are already a good team and a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender, the first-round picks you're going to get from Watson are basically going to be second-round picks. They're going to be 29-30 range. And that wouldn't really make sense to me. You mentioned Matthew Stafford. I don't think that would be a bad option, but to me, I think Belichick has a plan. I mean, he's a football genius. I think the Patriots might trade for Matthew Stafford, and I think that would be a genius move. And you did mention Trask and Matt Jones. I believe the Colts also have Jacob Eason from this past season they drafted. I'm a big fan of Eason. I really don't understand why he fell so far. But, I mean, Fitzpatrick wouldn't be a bad option at all if you would draft a quarterback or if you would stay with Eason to future successor. But it'd be really interesting to see with the Colts. I think Wentz would be the best option. I know his contract is ridiculous, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, he might have a good year, but in a way, I mean, if Eason's not really what you expected, you're kind of back to where you started type of deal. But as we move on to the next playoff game, we mentioned the Colts and Bills. The Rams defeated the Seahawks 30-20. I picked the Rams in the upset here. I was not surprised they won because I picked them to win, but I was surprised how bad Russell Wilson played. Believe it was week 1 through week 7 or 8. His QBR was like 120 to close out the year. The second half, it was 90. Like, he was playing the MVP candidate. And to me, I mean, Rodgers was always the MVP to begin the year. I mean, I didn't pick him, but the way he's played, Russell Wilson was up there. But if you would not know Russell Wilson as a Super Bowl winning quarterback and an MVP candidate to begin the year, you'd think he was an average quarterback this past week. I mean, he played absolutely just not really good. He didn't play good the second half. And, some people will say the second half of the season, I just got to do better. The defense has improved, but that game was not on the Seahawks. They only gave up 30 points. That game was on Russell Wilson. And I know he's not won an MVP, and never won an MVP. He's not won a Super Bowl in a while. But, I mean, I've said he's the best quarterback in the NFL, but the way he's played the second half is just not like him at all. He seems like he always plays like a top 3, top 5 quarterback. At the second half of the season, he did not even play like a top 12 quarterback. He's very, very unimpressed with Wilson. And I mean, it's pretty much Wilson's fault, in my opinion. Seattle did not move on to the next round.
Yeah, I mean, I saw really no difference in talent level between the Seahawks quarterback and the Rams two quarterbacks. And that's an issue because whenever you're rolling out a rookie quarterback in Larry Wolford and then having a hurt Jared Goff come in the middle of the game, you expect Russell Wilson to play a little bit better than both those guys, especially Russell Wilson. We're talking the top three, top two quarterback in the league right now. You have to outplay that team. And I understand the LA Rams have a terrific defense with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald really anchoring the secondary and the defensive line respectively. But at the same time, this is Russell Wilson we're talking about. They have weapons. They have guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods who can definitely get open when needed. Gerald Everett as well, Josh Reynolds, a load of weapons that they can still use to get open and get around this LA Rams defense. And Russell Wilson was just not accurate enough. The pressure got to his face and he just couldn't handle it. And of course, we've been all over Seattle's defense all year, and a lot of NFL fans that have at least. But I agree with you. This isn't them to blame. Whenever Russell Wilson's turning the ball over and going 3 and out every single game or every single drive, what are they supposed to do? They can't stop every single play. Eventually, the LA Rams are going to find the end zone, and they did. That's ultimately what happened in this game. I still have faith in Russell Wilson. I don't want to go ahead and just hop on and say he's regressing. He's not being a good quarterback anymore. I still think he can, but this definitely is something to monitor for the future. If Russell Wilson has another struggling year, maybe they start considering looking to find a new replacement.
Yeah, I was very unimpressed with Wilson. I mean, Wilson didn't play good, but I will give credit to the Rams defense. I think the Rams defense had a lot to do with it. They are right now the teams who are left. I think they probably have the best defense in the NFL. And I know their offense isn't great, but I mean, if their offense can step a little bit, I think the Rams have a potential shot at being in the Super Bowl. I know they have to get past the Packers this week, and that's going to be a great game. But I mean, I'm really surprised just by the dominance of the Rams defense and how Russell Wilson didn't really play well. But this kind of leads to our next game. The Buccaneers took on the Washington football team, and talk about surprises. I mean, Taylor Heineke, in my opinion, I thought he outplayed Tom Brady, and that might sound kind of crazy. But if you compare Heineke's talent around him compared to Tom Brady, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. I read a report. Taylor Heineke supposedly played with I forgot what it was. He was hurt in the second half, but he played amazing. I mean, Tom Brady did play well, and the Buccaneers defense. They did kind of struggle some. I'm not surprised this game is close. I picked the Buccaneers to win, but I did think it was going to stay close. To me, I think this showed more about Washington than it did the Buccaneers. I don't think this proved anything different than the Buccaneers. I just thought this was more so the Washington football team, playing. Nobody gave Washington a chance, and they gave Tampa Bay everything they had. I mean, their defense, they gave up 31 points. It wasn't bad. Taylor Heineke, like I mentioned, played amazing. But I think this really said more about Washington than it did the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers obviously are a Super Bowl contender. They have a great game matchup this week against the Saints. Looking forward to that one. But I was very, very impressed with Washington, and I'm really, really excited for Washington's future.
Yeah, what a storyline going into the game. This was predicted to be one of the worst teams in the league in Washington. No one really knew how they were going to perform, and everyone was like, this is just a rebuilding year for them. Let them go to the draft next year. And here they are, 7-9, and they're in the playoffs. They won their division, going against one of the most highly touted and one of the biggest Super Bowl contenders in the league right now. I think we can all agree Tampa Bay is looking straight for the Super Bowl. And to see their fourth-string quarterback, Taylor Heineke, not their third, their fourth-string quarterback, go into this game and play against what many of us considered the all-time best quarterback in NFL history. It was crazy to see him come out here and actually make a game, especially with the less weapons around him. I agree with you. I think this speaks a lot to how well built Washington is for the future. If they can get a good quarterback down the line, they could be a very, very scary team because they have a very, very good defense, and I think they have some good weapons around them. They had guys like J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Cam Sims, Steven Sims. They have good weapons around him. Logan Thomas as well, the tight end, I like a lot. Plenty of weapons like they could really build around, and if they get a good quarterback who could throw them the ball, that's just going to be a very, very good team for the future, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned those players. Those aren't really household names. They're players that you don't really talk about often. But you look at their stats; they're very, very good, and they're very underrated. I mean, Terry McLaurin's played amazing this past 2 years. You can make a case he's close to a top 10 wide receiver range, and considering he's not really had a consistent quarterback, he's had Haskins, Heineke, Alex Smith. He's had so many quarterbacks with him, and to me, what the Washington football team should do, like we mentioned, they're a quarterback away from being really good. Trade for Deshaun Watson. Washington trades for Deshaun Watson. They're a Super Bowl team. Like to me, I mean, if you nearly beat the Buccaneers with a fourth-string quarterback, I know he played really good, but with a fourth-string quarterback in your defense, you nearly beat Tom Brady. I mean, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, like you mentioned, in the playoffs. And your defense is what you win games. Your offense, you just didn't have that consistent quarterback because you had to rotate and players continue to get hurt. But if you get Deshaun Watson in Washington, I will go ahead and say it. I think they'll win the Super Bowl next year. I know it's crazy because you look at the Saints. I think Breeze is gone. I mean, Brady's played well this year, but I don't know how much longer he'll play. And the Packers are really good, but I mean, it's next year. But if Washington trades for Deshaun Watson, that completely changes the NFC East. They would win that, and it completely changes the Super Bowl and the NFC. I think that would be an amazing move by Washington. I know you're going to have to give up 3 or 4 first-round picks at least, but you look at most valuable players on contracts. Mahomes, I mean, I know his contract's really high. Obviously, it's not going to be traded, but Watson right now is probably the most valuable quarterback you could actually trade for, and I think it would be an amazing move by Washington.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Though I don't know for sure if 4 first-round picks are even enough at this point. Washington may very well be looking at their young elite talent, like maybe Chase Young as well. And I don't know if Washington would be willing to trade that. Maybe they have to include a couple more first-round picks. But we've seen blockbuster trades like this in the past where teams offer their next 5 years of first-round picks for a star player. And with a guy like Deshaun Watson, if you can somehow put a package together at all, I would do it. And Deshaun Watson is going to be a top 5 quarterback for the next decade, I think. He has so much talent around him, or so much talent in general, but just not enough talent around him. And if you give him a team like the Washington football team who has weapons and has potential in their offense, I think that could create a very, very dangerous team for the future. And they have a lot of pieces, younger guys that maybe could throw into a trade. Maybe not Chase Young, maybe some other guys around the list as well that could be potential guys to throw in for the trade. But 4 first-round picks, maybe a star player as well. That could be probably what you're looking for if you're Washington right now. There's just Deshaun Watson is, I think of top 10 players that are untradeable, and I would put Watson probably in the top 5 of those guys because he is such a young guy who can be so good for the future. And there's almost isn't a price tag for him. And so the fact that he might be getting shopped is crazy to think about, and we still really don't know what market he holds.
Yeah, you look at the draft. It seems like every single season there's 2 or 3 teams who trade in the top 10 to trade to draft a quarterback. And to me, I would much rather. I mean, if you're going to give up 2 or 3 first-round picks to trade up and draft your quarterback, might as well go ahead and give up 2 or 3 more first-round picks and trade for a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, not knowing what you're going to get with that rookie quarterback. Deshaun Watson was at least a top 5 quarterback this year. The only reason nobody's talking about it is because he didn't win. I mean, look at the stats, his completion percentage. He played really well, really, really well. He has a horrible offensive line. He has no talent with him, like you mentioned. And then you look at Josh Allen. He has Stephon Diggs, which really helped him a lot this season. Has a good offensive line. Patrick Mahomes obviously has so much talent. Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams. Then you have, I mean, Watson doesn't have that guy to go to. And the fact that he still put up insane and historical numbers, it really speaks how good he really is. And I mean, his trade value it is going to be really, really high. But if I'm a team who needs a quarterback, I'd much rather wasting a couple more picks and getting a top 5 quarterback than wasting a couple picks for somebody who could be like Dwayne Haskins. In my opinion, I really think if a team trades for a quarterback, just go ahead and trade with Watson, not for a draft quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think for any team like Washington, especially, just winning your division, I mean, you have a high draft pick this year, so trading up might not be as easy. If you can get a guaranteed bona fide stud and Deshaun Watson, you better take it. That's just all I'm saying. Give anything you can to get him because he is going to be the future of your team, and you're going to have a very, very dangerous team once he's there. So, I really don't think there is enough first-round picks that you can trade for Deshaun Watson. But if I'm Washington, I'm saying 4 or 5 guys, and I'll give you one of my good players just to, maybe even consider the offer because – Watson's going to be a key piece for the future. I think wherever Watson goes, that team's going to be very, very dangerous for a long time.
This will not happen because they're both in the same division. But if you're the Jaguars, would you trade your 2 first-round picks? And they have the number 1 pick for the Deshaun Watson. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
If the Jaguars, it's not going to happen because they're in the same division. But the Jaguars offered their number 1 pick and their first-round pick to the Texans. Do you think the Jaguars should offer that trade for Watson? And do you think the Texans would accept it?
To start out, I think if you're the Jaguars, I would offer it. As much as I like Trevor Lawrence as a prospect, I think he is in the Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck echelon of quarterback prospects this year. Personally, I think that would you rather have a bona fide proven guy, Deshaun Watson, who has already shown he can be elite in the NFL level? Or would you rather take a risk on a guy like Trevor Lawrence? I'm not sure if I'd be willing to take the risk. If you want to go ahead and play for the absolute future, I personally think that, Deshaun Watson makes more sense as a quarterback. I think if you're looking at pick 1 overall right now, and if you knew Deshaun Watson was going to be this good, you would definitely take Deshaun Watson over Trevor Lawrence, despite the potential Trevor Lawrence holds. And so if I'm the Jaguars, I would for sure make that trade. As for the Texans, it is something to keep note of because the Texans, if they drafted Trevor Lawrence, that'd be very interesting to see what happens for the future. But they don't have really any pieces to build around a quarterback yet. And at this point, I'm not sure whether or not they want to go ahead and try to draft a younger quarterback now, or if they just want to build the pieces around him and then have, the pieces to then get a younger quarterback, like how the Dolphins kind of did once they hit free agency. They got a bunch of guys that they liked a lot, got pieces around and then drafted during the draft. I think it makes more sense for the Texans to worry about pieces around them first. But if I'm Houston, if there is one trade that makes a lot of sense to me, and if I still really want a quarterback, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if they'll take it, but I'll definitely have them in consideration.
Yeah, I really don't think it will happen. I really don't even think it will probably be offered because, they're both division teams. And we're kind of talking about the Jaguars here and the Texans. And, we were talking, we were just talking about the Washington game and the Buccaneers. And, the Jacksonville Jaguars currently do not have a head coach. And, they fired their head coach after a couple of years. And last week's episode, I was joined by a guest, and he was talking about how Joe Brady would be a good fit with the Jaguars, which I do think would be a good fit. And how everybody's talking about Urban Meyer going possibly to the Jaguars, I don't understand that. To me, I said might as well bring Sweeney to the Jaguars. I think it makes more sense than Meyer. I don't think it'll happen, but why not be bold? But really looking at it, the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach position, you look at it, if the Buccaneers win this week, and if they go to the Super Bowl, the number 1 option the Jacksonville Jaguars should have as their head coach right now is Buccaneers offense coordinator Byron Leftwich. He played with the Jaguars for a couple years. He was drafted in the first round. He's done really, really well with Brady. Obviously, I know Brady. Brady's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But his play calls with the Buccaneers have been very, very good. They one of the best offenses in the NFL. Obviously, the Jaguars are going to draft Trevor Lawrence number 1. So why not give him an offensive-minded guy? I know Joe Brady would make sense here, but to me, I really think the Jaguars should really consider Byron Leftwich, especially if the Buccaneers continue to win the playoff games. I think it would be a great move. Like I said, he played there. He was a first-round pick, and he really gave an offensive coach to Trevor Lawrence. And it's crazy as it sounds, that Byron Leftwich is, coaching Tom Brady, and Brady's older than Leftwich. The things that Leftwich is learning as a coach and the things that Leftwich is learning from Brady. I know Leftwich isn't playing, but the things he's learned from Brady, he could teach, Lawrence and kind of help Lawrence's development. To me, I think the Jaguars. I know I'm kind of off topic here, but I think the Jaguars should hire Leftwich as their next head coach.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I haven't really even considered, but could make a lot of sense theoretically. Yeah, I agree with you though. The Urban Meyer, idea of him going to the Jaguars, I really don't agree with it either. I definitely see there being possible issues. I mean, Urban Meyer's been a college coach for a very long time, and he's been more of a team builder type coach. He's not really going to be the genius offensive or defensive minded guy that you expect whenever you have a new offensive or coach in the NFL. And for a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, the Bengals got Zach Taylor to match Joe Burrow. We've seen this in the past. I think they need to get an offensive-minded guy to match Trevor Lawrence. And you mentioned Leftwich. I mean, I can definitely see that, a guy that's learning a lot under coaching Tom Brady right now. I mean, Tom Brady's such a genius; he almost doesn't even need coaching. It's almost like Leftwich is getting the coaching from him. But he's learning a lot, and I definitely think he could, if he is a future quarterback, he could, be a very, very good, head coach for the future. But also, I mean, I heard Joe Brady, and I think Joe Brady's also another guy to really pay attention to. Maybe even the Titans offensive coordinator and Arthur Smith, more of a running kind of focused type guy. But at the same time, you have a guy like James Robinson in your backfield, and also Trevor Lawrence is a fantastic runner if need be. That could be a very dangerous offense as well. And he definitely has had success in the passing game as well with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, and as well as the two tight ends, Johnny Smith and Anthony Firkser. So, I mean, you definitely have guys there in the passing game as well. That could possibly transfer over to the Jaguars if you move over there. I do agree with you though. I think there's a lot of ideas that you can go with, but I definitely think an offensive minded coach like a Byron Leftwich or an Arthur Smith or even a Joe Brady makes a lot of sense.
Those three guys does make a lot of sense. I really didn't even think about Leftwich until after the episode was ended. And I think it would be a good fit. Joe Brady would also be a really good fit as well. There's not a ton of pressure winning in Jacksonville as opposed to like New York or a top market team or something like that. So it's been really interesting to see. So we've kind of been talking about the playoff results so far, talking about other topics as well. The Ravens took on the Titans and defeated the Titans 20-13. Lamar Jackson got his first playoff win. And lots of people are saying, well, Jackson played great. He didn't play bad by any means, but I mean, this game, I mean, they barely won, and Derrick Henry had 18 rushes for 40 yards, and you won by 7. And I'm not trying to be one of those people who's complaining despite winning, but you're playing a really good Bills team this week who's won now with their playoff win 10 of the last 11. And I mean, Jackson did play well. Their defense played really, really well. There's no taking that away. But the only reason you really won this game, in my opinion, I think was because you stopped Henry. He averaged 2.2 yards per carry. And if you stop Henry, you're more than likely going to win against the Titans because Tannehill, to me, isn't that guy who can elevate a team and win. But it was – I really don't know. I mean, I was impressed that the Ravens won because I picked the Titans. But the Ravens, to me, have to win. I mean, they have to play a lot better than they did this past week if they want to beat the Bills this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, if you asked me for the over and under this game, I'm not sure what the exact line was, but I probably would have taken the over regardless because, I mean, these are two teams who have definitely been good defensively in the past. I think especially Baltimore, they've had really good defensive games, but the Baltimore's never been able to stop Derrick Henry. We've seen this in the last 2 games they played against them, and the Titans defense has all around been very inconsistent this year. And I thought Lamar Jackson could do a little bit more in the playoff game this year. I was a bit surprised to see the game be so low scoring. Not a lot of guys really being effective all around. Derrick Henry struggled a lot, as you said. I only had 2.2 yards per carry. I believe he had like 16, 17, maybe even 18 rushes, but barely got 40 yards rushing, which is crazy to think Derrick Henry getting stopped that bad. But at the same time, they had guys like A.J. Brown who were ultimately shut down in the second half. I think it really is what carried the Ravens to the win. But I do agree. I think despite the win, I'm not sure if Lamar Jackson's playoff issues have been solved because Lamar Jackson played it well enough to win, but is this well enough to beat the Bills or the Chiefs? I don't think so.
Yeah, take away that one rushing touchdown he had. To me, it really, ignited their offense and their team as general. They played a lot better after that run he had for a touchdown. Take that away, he really didn't play that good. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of a Jackson critic. I think he's a great runner, but the passing to me is an issue. You look at that one, I believe it was Marquise Brown, that pass that was wide. I mean, it was a horrible pass. He was leaning towards out of bounds. And I'm not trying to just find stuff to complain about Jackson, but his passing has to improve if they want to beat the Bills. And I mean, the Bills, the Ravens. I don't think their playoff. I mean, they win, but I don't think they really proved enough to possibly beat the Bills, like you mentioned. So we'll talk about the next game here. The Saints defeated the Bears 21-9. This could possibly be Breeze's last season. More than likely is. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Saints team goes on to the Super Bowl. But the Bears didn't really have a chance, in my opinion. And to me, I thought this was the least. I was unable to watch the whole game. I watched most of it. But to me, I mean, if you look at the games heading into this week, this was the game that I was not intrigued by at all. I just thought it was going to be, Saints. I mean, it could have been. It could have been closer. I mean, there's a couple of calls, a couple of fumbles and stuff. But to me, I mean, the Saints, as nobody expected them to lose. I'm not surprised they lost, but they do have to play a lot better this week because they're playing a good Buccaneers team. And I mean, they did sweep the Buccaneers this season, and the last time they played, they won like 38-3 or something like that. And they have to play great because the Buccaneers are going to come in there and try to get revenge on them.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay and New Orleans both had pretty clean sweeps in games this week. These are, Chicago and Washington, though, I respect them for making it into the playoffs. I don't think they're playoff caliber teams. I think they got in simply because Chicago managed to be the seventh best team in the NFC because of a really hot start to the first couple of weeks of football, and then Washington won in a very poor conference. Though I think that these teams could be good in the future, they're not the playoff teams that they somehow made yet. I think that they definitely have a year or two more to improve before I ever consider them to be contenders. And Chicago. I mean, I hate to say this Bears fans are going to agree with me whenever I say this. Mitchell Trubisky is not the answer. He's not going to win you a playoff game. He never will. He never can. I'm sorry. He's a backup quarterback for the future, I think. And they could definitely get a guy possibly in the draft, or maybe even try to sign a guy like Sam Darnold, or trade for a guy like Sam Darnold. Maybe if they wanted to try to build for the future. But they're in a really weird position right now because they have a late pick. We don't know how many of these younger quarterbacks are going to be available. Like the guys like Drew Lock of the world or the Sam Darnolds of the world. We don't know if they're going to be traded right now because there are questions on whether or not they're going to stay with the team or not. We don't know if they're planning to keep them or not. So that'll be interesting to kind of monitor, because I feel like Chicago could be one of those buyers for some of those younger quarterbacks in the league. Maybe even Dwayne Haskins. Maybe if they want to sign him, assuming Washington releases Haskins. Should be interesting to see if they maybe can work with the younger quarterback.
Trade for them, maybe trade like a second round pick or something like that. I know it's kind of pricey for somebody who's not really played great, but I would take Darnold right now, somebody who's not necessarily proven, but at least has experience. I would take Darnold over Matt Jones or Kyle Trask in the second round. But, I agree with what you said with Trubisky. He's not playing. He's just not playing good. He's never going to elevate a team. He's never going to win you the big time games. He's a game manager, really similar to Andy Dalton. And I mean, to me, I wasn't really surprised at all that the Bears were unable to defeat the Saints this past week. And so the final playoff game result is pretty much a shocker. The Browns defeating the Steelers 48-37. What were your thoughts on this game?
What a dominant performance by a Browns team that didn't have half their players. Well, it's a little bit of a stretch. They definitely had most of their players, but Kevin Stefanski was out. Their longest tenured player on the team, Joe Bitonio, was out, and they still managed to pull out the win. Very impressive game, especially for their defense. Really, interrupting Ben early on. I'm a Bengals fan, so of course I'm going to relate this, but this reminded me a lot of the Bengals Monday Night Football win over the Steelers. Just complete dominant performance by their defense, and it kind of led to some success in their offense, jumping out to a 35-7 lead, I believe, at halftime. I mean, the Steelers, I commend them for actually coming back and making this a closer game than what it was. But this was a blowout win, despite what the record says, or despite what the score says, because the Browns all around were the better team, and just complete play across the board. Good passing game, good running game, great defensive play. As for the Steelers, I can't help but believe this is the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era. He's set to make $42 million next year, at least in the cap pit he is, and that is going to be, that's a lot of money for a guy that got blown out against the Browns. So I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to be in the upper echelon of teams again, as they've been a lot in the past, because they don't have a quarterback to help. And starting out the season so hot, being the last undefeated team in football, and then you turn around and all of a sudden, all of a sudden you're now the team is struggling to win any game against even some poorer teams. Pittsburgh's in a more rebuilding mode, I think, now.
Yeah, I'm real surprised that the Browns are able to pull off the upset here. I did not think they were going to win. Limited practice. Their head coach wasn't even there. I was very, very impressed with them. The Steelers, supposedly have a top defense. Give up 48 points to a team who had barely in practice. Like you said, they had a decent amount of players who were out in that game. And going into the season, I said it was really bold. Looking back, it was probably stupid. I said the Steelers were going to be last in AFC North this year. And you go into next year, I'm going to say it because, Ben Roethlisberger, like you said, is probably going to retire or not be a part of the Steelers. And you don't have that quarterback. You don't have any cap space. They can't really do anything. They have a really good defense. But, the Bengals, they kind of ended the season, last 4 or 5 games on the high note, winning a couple games. The Browns just beat you in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson got his playoff win. I really don't see the Steelers having a good season next year at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, this is the Steelers really just kind of, they're struggling to win the important games in this season right now. And I think that's going to be a huge detriment to their team at this point. So I agree with you. I think that I think that the Steelers might be in the rebuild mode that I think they probably should have been last year, because, Bud Dupree hits free agency, Juju Smith-Schuster hits free agency. A lot of their key players are going to free agency this year, and they're negative in cap space right now. They have negative, I believe, $21 million in cap space. They had to make some cuts just to be able to sign these players back, and that's going to be a huge issue. I'm really interested to see how that free agency goes, because if they can get rid of some of these poor contracts on their team, maybe they can resign some of these guys and have a good team for the future. But it almost seems like now it's for certain at least Juju and Bud Dupree are gone, maybe even some more guys. So 2 of your younger key players are now out of the team. And, what your biggest player is, Big Ben, who really is the issue right now for your team. So, you're losing the players that are keeping you, in games, and you're keeping the players that are really hurting you overall. And it's a recipe for disaster. I'm interested to see how our coaching staff goes. Because, Mike Tomlin's getting a lot of heat now, and I still think Mike Tomlin's a fantastic coach. I thought first half of the year he was coach of the year, but I definitely think there is now at least a discussion to be made whether or not maybe they should consider trying to reset completely with a new coach.
Yeah, you kind of talked about coaches being fired. Tomlin's name, people talking about maybe he should be fired, kind of goes on to our next topic. Doug Peterson was fired for the Eagles this past week. Kind of shocked some people a little bit. He won a Super Bowl just 3 years ago. He had his first losing season since his first year being a head coach. His first year he was under 500, but after that he had 3 straight seasons over 500, including that Super Bowl win. This past year they were 4-11-1. That last game of the year against Washington. To me, I think that kind of did nail in the coffin. It seemed like he didn't even want to win. It is kind of crazy, though. He won your Super Bowl 3 years ago and you fired him. And then you look at some people like the Bengals who expect great things of Zach Taylor, who's won 6 games in just 2 seasons. I understand the decision. I am kind of shocked by it. But to me, people are talking about head coaching candidates, maybe like Robert Saleh or something like that. To me, Joe Brady. Joe Brady makes so much sense here. You get him with Jalen Hurts. Obviously we know what he did with Joe Burrow in college. And I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the episode my top 6, in no particular order. or Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Sewell, Devontae Smith, and Jamar Chase, the Eagles have the 6th pick. More than likely, at least Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith is going to be available. Jamar Chase had 20 touchdowns and 1,700 yards with Joe Brady as the when he was with LSU, making Burrow look so good. You get Jamar Chase with Hurts. I think that would be a great fit for Philadelphia if you add Joe Brady as the head coach. I think it could be. I know Hurts isn't a great passer, but he'll get him more comfortable with the offense, be able to let him start to pass more. And I'm kind of surprised by the Peterson firing. I understand it, but to me, I think Joe Brady would be a really great hire here.
Yeah, I think Joe Brady for any team is a great candidate. I think he's just – you saw what he's done in LSU, and he has just been a crazy good offensive-minded. And for it, I really feel like the Eagles could use really any offensive or defensive-minded coach right now. And, you mentioned Robert Saleh. Right now, that's probably my favorite pick, especially assuming a team like the Lions might go Marvin Lewis. Saleh is a good defensive-minded guy, and I think that he could probably join that team. And if he gets a good OC, maybe he can do some damage for the Eagles. But at the same time, you can't go wrong with an offensive-minded coach. If you get a guy like Joe Brady, as you mentioned, a guy that's focused on passing, you already have your running game locked down with Miles Sanders and also Jalen Hurts who can run the ball. If you can get the passing going and draft a guy maybe Devonta Smith, as you mentioned, and maybe even get another quarterback to help you pass the ball more consistently, all of a sudden that team has a very dangerous offense. And maybe if they can build up the defense as well, I think they still need a couple of guys, like especially a corner 2 next to Darius Slay. If they can build up their defense, all of a sudden, this is a very poor division in the NFC East right now. So I think there is a discussion to be made if they could possibly go from being the worst team in the division to then the best team next year if it makes the right coaching hire.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what Philadelphia does. I am still kind of surprised about the Peterson firing, honestly. I understand with the last game, but up until the last game, I don't think he was bad enough to get fired. And we kind of talked about the Jets with quarterbacks, and we just recently talked about the Steelers. Comment from Joe Burrow enthusiast says, "You think the Jets would draft a QB, and you think Sam Darnold could go to the Steelers?" I'll let you answer that one first.
So just to answer first with the Jets question, I think it's a little bit of an easier question. I think that the idea of drafting a quarterback in my eyes would be a mistake.
He's back. I'll let him answer.
Sorry, I don't know what just happened there. My fault. I think if you're the Jets, I look at Sam Darnold and I still have faith in Sam Darnold. I just don't think he's ever going to be the great quarterback he can be with the Jets. So in my eyes, I definitely think there is a plausible situation to where the Jets maybe do consider drafting a quarterback. I think if you ask me, Justin Fields holds a lot more potential, as well as Zach Wilson, than what Sam Darnold does for your team. And I think that's I think right now Sam Darnold just needs a new place to kind of find, similar to Carson Wentz. I think Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz are in the same boat. They just need a new team. I don't think they're bad quarterbacks. They just need a new team. And so, yes, I think drafting a quarterback makes a lot of sense in my eyes. But I also think trading down as well makes a lot of sense. If you maybe don't want the top tier quarterback, maybe instead you can worry towards, maybe getting a new quarterback next year. I also think it makes a lot of sense because, they still technically have Sam Darnold locked down if need be. So, having him maybe for an extra year while you really look towards quarterback, maybe 2022 makes a lot of sense as well. So if it was me drafting right now, I think I would be picking right now between either drafting a quarterback or trading down, because at pick 2, the value is going to be a quarterback. As much as I like Penei Sewell, I don't really see the value in taking him right now at pick 2 whenever you can easily trade down for a load of picks possibly to take another great offensive line, or maybe even trade down to pick 6 or 7 and have elite guys as well there as well, like Devonta Smith. So it just makes a lot more sense to me to either take a quarterback where quarterbacks are usually taken, or take or trade down possibly and take the other positions you need.
Yeah, drafting a quarterback to me with the Jets, I'm not against trading back with the Jets. I agree with you there. But to me, if the Jets are going to take a quarterback, I kind of prefer Zach Wilson. I just think he's more NFL ready. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson in some ways. I'm not against Justin Fields, but I just think overall Wilson's more pro ready. I think it's better overall. And could start Sam Darnold go to the Steelers? I think that's a possibility. I mean, like we kind of mentioned, the Steelers don't have like no cap space. They cut their players, not going to have a whole lot to sign and stuff. And with Roethlisberger possibly retiring, go ahead and get somebody who, even though he might not have been good this past season, get somebody who has some experience rather than somebody than drafting like a second-round pick or something like that, a Matt Jones, a Kyle Trask. And, Darnold does need a new start, like Wentz, like you mentioned. I think that would be pretty good for the Steelers because, I mean, I know you have lots of holes on your offense primarily, but try to get your quarterback. And if say Darnold fails, at least you try to improve. I think Darnold would do pretty decent with the Steelers. I don't think they're going to – I mean, obviously they're not going to be as good, but I think Darnold would do much better with the Steelers with the Jets because with Darnold with the Steelers, he's not going to be asked, to do as much stuff as he was with the Jets, elevated team. If Darnold wants the Steelers, he just needs to play turnover-free football and don't make stupid mistakes. As with the Jets, he kind of elevated. And you did mention – I'm going back to the Jets part with the quarterback. You mentioned trading back. Let's say you trade back. You have Sam Darnold. Let's say you get 2 or 3 first-round picks. You draft quarterback next year if you want. You would have Sam Darnold, Mekhi Becton at your tackle. You would have Denzel Mims, who going out of last year's draft, I was a big fan of. And if you trade back for like 6 or 4 with the Eagles or the Falcons at number 4, you have a chance to get Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. You have one of those two guys with Denzel Mims and Darnold. A year from now, let's say you don't like Darnold, you draft a new quarterback. Regardless who your quarterback is, you have 2 very talented receivers who are on rookie contracts, Mims and Smith/Chase. Really thinking about it, I think that might be the better option, possibly, because number 2, you're pressured a ton. You trade back, there's less pressure, you get more picks. But I'm not opposed to trading back the Jets. It'd be really interesting to see what the Jets do. I mean, obviously one of the most high market teams, lots of pressure with the number 2 pick. I mean, will it be Fields? Will it be Zach Wilson? Maybe even trade back like we talked about. But we've talked about the Jets and we've talked about the playoff recap and draft situations and everything like that. So as we continue talking about the playoffs upcoming week, the Packers take on the Rams. Very excited for this one. To me, before the playoffs started, who did you have in your Super Bowl prediction?
Sorry, say it again. Sorry.
Before the playoffs started, who did you pick to be in the Super Bowl and win it?
Oh, okay. So before the playoffs started, I originally had the Chiefs against the Packers. So really the 2 first seeds, which makes a little too much sense. But if you ask me who after at least this week right now, I'm not leaving out the Bills either because a couple weeks ago, if you asked me, I would have said, probably the Chiefs and the Packers. Those are always the 2 best teams in the league. But, after what I've seen for a little bit, teams like the Bills and maybe even in the NFC side, like the Rams. If the Rams could pull off this upset, they could be in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to sleep on them. If Jared Goff comes back and plays well in this game and they somehow upset the Packers, they have an easy road to the Super Bowl because I think they can probably beat the New Orleans Saints or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, beforehand, I was, big on I find it hard to believe the Chiefs or the Packers could lose. But at the same time, now I think it's a lot more of a possibility because, we're seeing a lot of these other teams play very, very well. And I can see a team like the Bills or the Rams upset their way up into the Super Bowl.
Well, the beginning of the season, I had the Chiefs and the Saints. Honestly, I don't remember who I had winning. But before the playoffs started, I had the Bills and the Packers. I had the Packers winning. To me, they're the 2 most complete teams of football right now. I know the Chiefs, you can't take them lightly because they're the Super Bowl, defending champs and everything. But I really think the Packers, coming out of the NFC, they look like the best team. Arguably in football, I think they're the 2 best teams. I actually had the Packers winning this one. I won't be surprised if they lose. Like we kind of mentioned, the Rams have a really, really good defense. And if their offense just steps up a little bit, that you're on a potential upset watch. I mean, Rodgers is playing freaking amazing, definitely the MVP. It's going to be a great game. The defense for the Rams have to play great. The defense of the Rams plays what they did against the Seahawks. I think they can win this because I really don't trust the Packers' defense too much. I don't trust the Packers defense too much. I trust Rodgers, but if Rodgers gets pressures like Wilson did this past week against Aaron Donald, it's going to be really interesting to see. I have the Packers. I'll say 27-23, but would not be surprised at all if the Rams would end up winning.
If the Rams play defense like they did against the Seahawks, I might actually pick the Rams, but I'm not sure if they're going to follow up with a fantastic defensive game with just another one, especially against the MVP candidate and Aaron Rodgers. I trust the Packers have a great game plan to go against the Rams because – credit to Matt LaFleur and overall just the Packers coaching staff. They've been very prepared for every single game this season. We've seen them have great game plans all around. I think the Packers will win this game. I think it'd be really close. I agree with you, though. So I think, Aaron Rodgers is going to get his own, and he's going to be able to put up enough points. But I think overall it's probably going to be a little bit low scoring. I'm going to go 23-17. I think the Packers defense does a good job of stopping the Rams offense, and we kind of saw that a little bit between the Rams and the Seahawks. Not much offense generated at all. Really just great defensive play around both teams. So I'll take the Packers to win in a very, very low-scoring game. I think Rodgers still does have a very good game, though.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see. And to me, this is arguably my most anticipated matchup. It's either between the Buccaneers and Breeze, and pretty much the last time they're ever going to play each other. It's just crazy to think about. It's probably going to be over. And you just mentioned, and I just mentioned our Super Bowl predictions. Earlier in the year, as it was right now, we both mentioned the Chiefs. The Chiefs take on the Browns. Sounds crazy here. It's going to sound stupid. I'm going to get tons of heat for it because most of my listeners are Bengals fans. I'll take the Browns in the upset. I think it's possible. I don't think the Chiefs are as good as people think they are. I understand, the 14-2, basically 14-1 because the last game Mahomes did not start. They are totally beatable. You look at the Bills play the Chiefs right now. I have 100% full confidence the Bills would beat the Chiefs. If the Packers played the Chiefs, they would beat them. And even the Rams, I think that would be an interesting game. But, the Chiefs at one point during the season, the week prior to their loss to the Chargers, the final week of the season, they had 7 straight one-possession game wins. That's the most in NFL history. That's the longest streak in NFL history. 7 flip half of those. You're 12-4. You're not even the first seed in the AFC. And you got other teams like the Bills who are amazing right now. The 10 of the last 11. The Packers, I think, at 8-9 or 9-10, something like that. And the Browns, proved everybody wrong this past week. Nobody expected them to win unless you're a Cleveland fan. You have people like Chase Claypool saying you're going to lose. Everything like that. Nobody's giving you a chance this week. And they scored 48 points against the Steelers defense. I don't think they're going to score that much points against the Chiefs. I think it'll be a close game. I think they're due for an upset. I think it'll be like the story of the year type of deal. The Browns go to like the AFC Championship or something. I think the Browns in this one, 31-27. I think they're going to be able to contain Mahomes a little bit. I know Mahomes has had an amazing season. But you look at a couple of games, he's, for the most part, played really, really well. There have been a couple of games he's kind of struggled. Just people aren't really talking about it because, 1, it's Mahomes, and 2, they won that game. But I'll take Cleveland here for the upset.
I respect the upset because this is the playoffs. It happens. And Cleveland played very, very well against Pittsburgh. And if they play well like that again, maybe this is a closer game. I do agree with you. I think that this will be a very close game. I don't know if the Browns are going to win. I'm going to pick the Chiefs 33-30 to win this game. But I do think that the Browns are going to stay a little oddly close in this game. This will be a game that we will watch in the final minutes, I think, because this Browns team looks really, really good. They are really gluing together, and they're playing really well at the right time, I think. And as for the Chiefs, they've been playing to their opponents' overall talent level, and I think that they're going to do it yet again this time around. But I think at the end of the day, it's hard for me to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I'll take him to win this one.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. This is going to be a great game. I think a potential upset watch, like I mentioned, I do have them winning. I think people need to, they need to take the Browns a little bit more serious, and not discredit the Chiefs. They are 14-2, they're defending champs, but at some point you do kind of got to look inside the lines. 7 straight one-possession games. It's full record. The games they've played, they've not looked good in. And I agree with what you said. They're not playing up to the level of competition. You know how like in college you play small school and you don't play good. Then you play a bigger school and you play good. To me, that kind of plays out how the Chiefs have played this season so far. So we switch over to another AFC North team, and we kind of talked about the Bills just a minute ago. The Bills and the Ravens. I think the Bills will win this game. The way we talked about earlier, the Ravens, despite them winning, they did not look good. I'm taking the Bills. I do think it'll be low scoring because of the way the Ravens play defense. Like we mentioned, Derrick Henry had 18 attempts for 40 yards, 2.2 yards a carry. That is insane. If you do that, you're going to win. But they're going to run a whole lot. I mean, they're a pass-heavy team. Josh Allen is playing the MVP candidate. Like we mentioned, Lamar Jackson didn't really play great. He had that one rush for a touchdown, but that was really about it. I'll take the Bills here 17-13 Bills. The problem with the Bills here, it is an upset watch because the Ravens, the Bills have to stop the run. If they don't stop the run, they're not going to win. And if there's a team here who, let's say the Bills or the Ravens go up by, let's say, 10, whoever's winning is probably going to win this game because the Ravens, if they get behind, they don't come back from teams. I know they did come back a little bit this past week, but the Bills, if they get ahead, I think they'll be able to manage a victory. But I have the Bills winning here 17-13.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be another game. Sorry, my camera isn't on right now, but I think this is going to be another really, really good game between the Bills and the Ravens. I think that, I've been talking about the hottest team in football being the Bills. I'm going to stand by that. I think the Ravens are definitely going to be good contenders in this game, but I'm going to take the Bills in this one as well. I'm going to take them 24-20 probably. I think that overall, I look at both teams, and I just think the Bills are more complete, and so I think they'll have the better game.
Yeah, really intrigued by that one. I mean, two young quarterbacks, and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I mean, Jackson, MVP last year. Josh Allen's had an MVP caliber season this year. Will be a great game. So we have two more topics here. One's the fan questions. The other is the playoff game. The Buccaneers and the Saints. The Saints swept the Buccaneers early in the season. Even defeating them, I believe, 38, 35-ish to 3 earlier in the year. It's going to be the last time these two play against each other. Just absolutely crazy. Makes me feel old. It's going to be a great game. It could go either way, but I'm going to take the Saints here because, I was talking about my guest last week. And he mentioned a couple of weeks prior to me, and he was talking to it. Kind of reminds me of the the Broncos won the year. Peyton Manning's his last year, rallied behind him, trying to win for him type of deal. The Saints have been unable to win the Super Bowl the last couple of years, unable to get to it. And I think this is the year the Saints, have an actual chance and a decent shot at it. I'll take the Saints here. It's either way. I mean, this is going to be a great matchup. Two first ballot Hall of Famers. You can make a case, two of the best quarterbacks of all time here. But I think it'll be high scoring. I'll go 38-34 New Orleans in this one.
This is going to be, I think, in my opinion, the most anticipated game this season. Very possibly this is Drew Brees' last game. I think Tom Brady might play another season, but it's not out of the question. This might be his last game. Two of the best quarterbacks of all time going head to head, as you mentioned. Two great teams overall as well. I think Tampa Bay and New Orleans as a whole are complete teams, and this is going to be a very, very close game, if you ask me. I think it's going to go down to the last drive. I could really see it being either Brees or Brady, whoever has the ball at the end. I think whoever has the ball at the end is probably going to start the game-winning touchdown and win the game. It's going to come down to the last few seconds of the game, and I'm going to be very, very excited for it, I think. I will take the Saints to beat Tampa Bay in this game. Very, very close, though. I'll have them 27-28. I think it's going to be right there, one-score game or 1-point game. So, I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited to see what happens here. I think the biggest wild card here, at least in my opinion, is Alvin Kamara. I think that, Tampa Bay has a lot of great weapons, and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and everything like that. But Kamara is just a different animal, and he has been such a great weapon for Drew Brees. And I think if Brees can really set the tone in this game with Kamara, I think they could find a way to win this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game, and everybody expects Drew Brees to retire at the end of the season, regardless of they win the Super Bowl or not. But let's say the Buccaneers win this game, go on to the Super Bowl and win. I don't know if it will happen, but really, do you think Tom Brady should retire if Tampa Bay were to win the Super Bowl this season?
I think he should, probably, because I don't think they're going to win next year. I agree with what Bruce Arians said. It's just Super Bowl or bust this year. I don't think they're going to be in the the range of the Super Bowl next year. So if I'm Tom Brady, yes. Do I think he will? I don't think so, because Brady really seems like he wants to play next year. And though I think it would be a bad idea, because I don't think they're going to be in Super Bowl contenders next year. I'm not going to judge Tom Brady. I think he probably is. He's going to do what he's going to want to do, and so I'm not going to blame him for it. So I think that he will stay another year. I don't think he should if he wins the Super Bowl.
If Tampa Bay were to win the Super Bowl, I think he should, because that's a Super Bowl with two different teams. I believe that's number 7 for Brady overall, and you win the Super Bowl in your home stadium. I really don't understand. I don't see what more you could do at that point. Realistically, like you mentioned, they're probably not going to win the Super Bowl next year. So, if ending the high note like Manning did, I think that would be kind of the best case scenario, because let's say you win a Super Bowl this year and next year you absolutely suck, and for whatever reason the Buccaneers don't even make it to the playoffs or something like that. You kind of want to end on you can't get a higher note or a higher mark than the Super Bowl. So if a Buccaneers win the Super Bowl, I think it would kind of be in Brady's best interest if he were to retire at the end of the year.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I agree with you. I would much rather end off as a Super Bowl winner, a guy holding a trophy and going out like that, rather than being the guy who ends up getting cut at the end of the year for a rookie quarterback in a new era. That's not what Tom Brady needs to do. He needs to end off his career on a great note, because he has been a great player for several years. And in my opinion, I think he proved in his last year that it wasn't just Bill Belichick. He is indeed a fantastic quarterback and will always be a great quarterback in the history of football.
Yeah, Brady obviously one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and their matchup against the Saints this week is going to be, an amazing, basically historic, because, you're not going to see one of these type of matchups probably in a while. And our last topic here, I know this is really random. I got a fan question here a couple minutes ago from somebody on Instagram, completely off topic, but last topic is, what do you believe will happen with AJ Green in free agency?
I think AJ Green is, he's not going to be a Bengal next year. I think can probably both agree on that. I really look towards wherever Marvin Lewis goes. I think AJ Green might as well end up. I look at the Lions. The idea of Marvin Lewis going to the Lions makes a lot of sense to me. The Lions are in need of not just being they just need to get out of the below average range. And I think Marvin Lewis in his career has been an above average coach. He's never been a great coach, but he's always led the Bengals to successful records, 9-7, 10-6. I think that's what the Lions need to go right now. And I think they're not going to be the division winners every single year. That's not the Lions, but they need a guy who's going to set them from the below average tier to the average tier. And I think Marvin Lewis can do that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And then after that, you can fire Marvin Lewis and get an above average coach. And then you can actually start contending for the Super Bowl. But the Lions are a couple of years out. I think they just need a new culture change. They need a new veteran guy to kind of settle in and really just reset the entire franchise as a whole, create a new a new environment for the Lions as a franchise. And I think Marvin Lewis could do that. And I think, I look at the wide receiver core. Marvin Jones might hit free agency. Kenny Golladay, they've mentioned, as possibly being a trade candidate or hitting free agency as well. I think that AJ Green makes a lot of sense for not only Marvin Lewis, but also for the Lions, as they kind of need a new guy in there in the event they lose one of Jones or Golladay. So that's my opinion right now. I think that makes the most sense. And I would definitely love to see, as a Bengals fan, seeing Marvin Lewis reunited with his wide receiver and AJ Green. But at the same time, Anything's possible. He could definitely go to a contender as well. I know AJ Green wants to go to a contender. I also think of teams like the New Orleans Saints being a possible a guy that could go there, a team that can go after him, or maybe even a team like the Washington football team, who is, kind of in need of that second wide receiver across from Terry McLaurin. I already mentioned Campson and Stevenson, so I don't think they're at the same level of degree as a guy like AJ Green is. And that's a team as well who's just won the division and can easily do it again. So another team that could possibly be a contender. There's just a lot of teams overall. I think AJ will probably end up going to a team that is trying to go to the upper echelon of winning and not settle for going lower. So I think that it makes a lot of sense that a team like the Lions and the football team who are looking to improve on their records, it makes a lot of sense. I think he would go to one of those guys.
Pretty much every single team you mentioned kind of has what to do and what to say with this. The Lions, I mentioned early in the episode, I think Stafford will be traded I think the Lions will trade Matthew Stafford, I think, to the Patriots. Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones are both free agents this year for the Lions. I think the head coach of the Lions will be Robert Saleh. He's near the Detroit area. And with AJ Green being the free agent, I think Stafford, to me, like I mentioned, the Patriots, Stafford played with Green in college. Before, this doesn't even have to do really with Stafford with going to the Patriots. But now, with possibly Stafford going to it, it does. Green to the Patriots makes a lot of sense. I thought that should have happened last year. Him being traded to New England, you add Stafford, who he's familiar with. I mentioned Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay. They're both free agents, both played with Stafford. The Patriots grab one of those guys. That's two really good wide receivers you add in the offseason. And then you also mentioned Marvin Lewis. I mentioned in my last episode, we did a head coach candidate for each team. And I said Marvin Lewis in Atlanta. Let's say Marvin Lewis goes to Atlanta. You would have AJ Green and Julio. That's just crazy to think about. And Hugh Jackson was on the show not too long ago, and he mentioned wherever Marvin goes, he's going to try to go. You would go back to Hugh Jackson. You would go back to Marvin Lewis. And he played college in Georgia. He's staying in his home state. To me, if we're talking about Lewis, I think Atlanta and Green goes to the Falcons, or also the Patriots joining Matt Stafford if he gets traded.
That makes a lot of sense as well. And I think it does make. I agree with you. I think wherever Marvin Lewis goes, I think we're going to look at AJ Green possibly being a candidate to go to that team, regardless of who the wide receiver core is, regardless of how good Julio and Calvin Ridley are. Marvin Lewis is going to want to have AJ Green, and if they were able to sign AJ Green next to Julio Jones, that would just be so entertaining to watch, because those are two of the all-time greatest wide receivers we've seen this last decade, and two of the top tier guys. I think that. I also agree with you, though. You mentioned New England as a team, maybe even the Miami Dolphins, who also kind of need a quarterback or wide receiver, and are looking to win in the future. That also makes a lot of sense. There's a long list of teams, and I think AJ Green it's really going to be his decision on where he wants to go, and I can definitely see Marvin Lewis and possibly or the Atlanta area where the Atlanta Falcons are at. It makes a lot of sense if he wants to actually go there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the off season, especially in the playoffs. We're still not made it through the whole season yet. This episode, we've covered a ton of stuff. We've been on here for about an hour and a half. We talked about the NFL wildcard results, college football title recap. That seems like forever ago. We've been on here forever. Doug Peterson fired by the Eagles, head coach candidate for the Eagles. The NFL playoffs divisional round preview this week. We know we've answered some fan questions. We've been on it's really pretty good episode. So, Blake, can you tell some of the listeners to follow you on social media?
Yeah, I still have my Bengals page at Stripe Pipe Cincy now is what it's called. Go follow me there. I'm still trying to regrow it. I lost my old page whenever on Instagram, so I had to start over with a new one. I am also find me on my website at BengalsInsiders.com. I'm the owner of the website. I have a lot of writers down there who are constantly writing Bengals content, so I suggest you go down and check that. And follow me on Twitter at BlakeJu714. I talk about pretty much all football there, not just the Bengals. So if you want to go follow me there as well, that'll mean a lot. So thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try to have you on. Maybe in a couple of weeks or so as we get closer to the Super Bowl. Make sure to follow Blake and his website. All those accounts will be listed in the description below. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram on below there. Thank you all so much for listening. It's a great episode. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. and I will see you next time on our Sports 200 Show.